Hi, it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts, and we're back on the Scout. This is the part we're going to peel the flexible shape pattern off, and then we're going to punch holes through here. I'll explain what the holes are for, and then we'll cut the blank of steel and we'll start forming up this piece. So what you want to do is when you take this off, you've got to be very careful that it doesn't separate. I've reinforced this one on the edge here, so it gives it a little stronger. And you can take a razor blade, help you lift it up here. There we go. So we'll carefully peel this off. You gotta be careful not to touch itself. If it touches itself, it's almost impossible to get it apart. And there you have it. Now you don't want to touch itself, but now you can see why on this first layer you cut out any overlaps, because they do come undone when it's not directly sticky to sticky. It's sticky to not sticky. It'll come undone. So these got a little screwed up because they didn't want to come up, so we'll lift these up and then put them back down. We'll do that over there. So now the next step is we're going to dust it and we're going to punch all the holes. Alright, so we just have some plaster. We're going to pour the plaster on here. Brush it around with a paintbrush. And that kills all the sticky. I'm going to try to get all this residue of the plaster out of here. And there we have it. So if we hold this on the bench, we'll see that it's very subtle, but there's just a little bit of looseness here. That's where the top of the panel is here, and there's a little bit of area change right there. If you tape this down and inflated it, you would see the exact amount of area you have to put in the panel. And there's a little bit on the front because the front nose dives down. So what we'll do now is we'll punch all these holes out. So I got to get a hammer and a punch, and we'll punch the holes out. Alright, so now I'm going to punch some of these holes out. These are where the gauges are. There's gauges on the edges, but we don't have to punch anything there, just where the gauges are here. So they're straight lines, so in effect you really don't have to punch the whole thing on this one because they're all basically straight lines. So and when you punch them, try to punch them right in the center of the line as much as possible. I was off on that one, but when we mark it on the panel, we'll reference right to the center of that line. So these are all dead straight ones. So most of the time they are straight. So we can put these, if we made the reason for these holes right now would be to index all these points where the gauges go on our new sheet metal piece, and also allows us to turn it inside out to make the other side. So we're just going to do the minimal amount of punching on this one. And these are your gauge index points, so we want to punch those out right there. Alright, so we have the pattern all punched out now, and the next step would be actually cutting the blank off. So we put the information here. We need a 1/2 inch extra over here. That's a weld. This is going to have a flange. That's a 1/2 inch extra. This is a flange, 1/2 inch extra, 1/2 inch extra here, and this is 19 gauge. I measured the fender up the other day, and we'll just lay this on a piece of sheet metal, mark it out, and add extra. And usually, even if it says only a 1/2 inch, I add a little bit extra from that, and then we'll start working the panel. This one can be wheeled the whole way, and we'll have the gauges and we'll have the flexible shape pattern that will our measuring tools to tell us where we need to be. Now, this has a roll in it, and we can add a lot extra on this side to help facilitate putting that roll in. We don't have to, but we could. I'll leave a little bit stronger on this side here so I can get a little leverage to bend that over. Alright, so here's our fender now. We've stripped most of it. We've done a little bit of rust removal with the navel jelly. There's still a bunch to do. This is where we're putting our patch panel in. We'll take care of all that with the patch panel. And then we're going to replace most of this ledge here too. And if you remember yesterday, or the last video, this was all coated with an undercoat. There's still a little bit of paint here. This is all going away here. We probably have to rust remove that a little bit. And we got to rust remove that a little in these spots. That's where the all-wheel drive and the Scout symbol came through. The leaks through where the pin came through and the nut went on it, and it rusted up a little bit. And all this edge is rusted a little bit. We'll clean that up, and that bottom edge has to be repaired. So that cleaned up pretty nice. What a difference if you sandblasted that. You would remove all this history. And you can see, this is the history here, all these little scratches that happened, and the little dent down in here, the dent over here. You can really do the forensics on what happened to that fender through the years. But all in all, from 1966 to this point, it's not bad. So it could be a lot worse. I thought it was 20 gauge, it's 19 gauge. On the hood, we've been using the navel jelly. I did this spot the other day, and we just added a couple more spots. We got about a third of it done. This is just paint remover here mostly. There's a very little rust here. So tomorrow I'll dose up a couple more of these spots, and you know, it's passive. You put it on, let it do its thing, and then scrape it off, put another dose on, and it's one way of doing it. As opposed to sandblasting. I had a phone call today from someone in California who had a 66 Chevelle, I believe it was, and he sent his hood out. There was nothing wrong with the hood whatsoever, and he sent it out to a reputable sandblaster, and it came back and it's like this. So he bought my shrinking disc in the hope that he'll be able to straighten it out with the shrinking disc. I says, even with the shrinking disc, unless you have access to both sides, it's very difficult to get that factory smoothness again. I said, you're going to spend a week, and it would have been much better just use paint remover. Alright, so I'm going to use the YouTube English wheel on this. This is just a low crown panel. I've got my real low crown anvil on here. And this is the YouTube English wheel. If you watch some of my videos, if you're new to the channel, we did a video on showing you how we made this wheel. And we sell plans for the frame. We also sell all the guts. You can make your own guts or buy my guts. They're all on the website. In fact, if you buy the guts, there's still an opportunity. You buy the complete set of the hardware to it. You get a free 4-day class included also. All right, cleaning this off. Everything's got to be super spotless clean, no dust or anything. And make sure your wheels are nice and clean. I cleaned them a little earlier. I'll just check them again. And I left a lot of extra material on the top here. The main focus of all the wheeling is going to be right about here. That's where that curve goes, and there's a little slight curve from front to back, and then it curves in a little bit to the front body panel. So there'll be a little extra wheeling right in here. So you can wheel it the long way, which is the most efficient way. Like, we'll start out that way. And I use the red ball as an indicator of where I'm at. First I find out that's the slipping point, so there's the red ball over here. I'll bring it over to there, and I got pretty good engagement now. And it's a real slow development at that engagement. That's a medium zone pressure, so I'll give it a little bit more here. And this is nice and smooth. We'll just pump this up a little bit in here. A little plaster dust on here. It'll impregnate the plaster dust on into the panel, so you got to make sure you get it good and clean. It looks like I'm going to have to get some lacquer thinner and clean that wheel a little. I'm going to put a little extra right in here too. Alright, so let me get some lacquer thinner to clean that wheel. You can see just from that little bit of a minute and a half or 2 minutes of wheeling, see we got a nice compound already starting right there. It's probably about 1/4 of an inch of rise in the panel. Moves pretty quick. Alright, we got the wheel cleaned up, and now we'll put it in this way, and we'll start wheeling in this direction, and we'll pull down as we want this to roll over. So our gauges, let's get a gauge so you can see what I'm talking about. Gauge number 6. Gauge number 6 goes about here, so that has to roll that much. And then gauge number 2 is in the middle. That has to come up. It's almost there already, so it doesn't have to come up too much this way, but that way will reduce as you go this way. So you start to learn the understanding of the curves going in both directions. It's a mystery until you really delve into it and work on the panels. So using the bottom wheel, the anvil, as a fulcrum. I always say in my videos, a lot of this is fulcrum and lever. So I'm doing mostly arrangement at this point. I'm not too tight. I can tighten it a little bit more. Now let's say we went too much. I'm pulling down every time. If I go too much, I just lift up a little bit. It's very easy to reverse it. Where we don't want to go too much is adding the area. We're doing mostly arrangement. Bending is arrangement. We're bending mostly here. We're adding a little bit of area because there's a little pressure on there, but it's not a great amount. And you can't neglect this bottom section of the panel. This is going to have a little attention too. Now, that number 6, we haven't got it located yet with the, but you can see what's happening here. We're getting pretty close now. We're about 3/8 of an inch or so. And that is going to be, that's where I want my strong fulcrum point, right about here. So you got to memorize that. So pull it over a little more. I don't know if we'll get this panel finished tonight. I doubt it, but we'll get a good start on it. We're keeping a logbook of all the time we spent. You know, we're doing a video, we might spend 2 hours, but the actual work time might only be 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Mark is keeping an elaborate log of everything that we do, so you get a good comparison. So now let's put that there. It's getting pretty close. It's right in here. And now we'll put the flexible shape pattern on there and see what that says. That'll probably show us a little gap that we're going to have to fill up. Let's see. So we locate that on our perimeter line, and it's a little bit loose. Mostly right here. That's where it's going to need the most attention, right there. You can see I got this pulled tight, yet there's a big gap in the fit right here. As I go back here, it gets tighter and tighter. It'll need less attention over there. That's almost completed right now. And it's progressive from nothing to more and more. And you need a little bit in the front because that's where it's going to roll this way also. So now I'll put a lot of my effort right in here. Got to get all that dust off. If you don't take the dust off, you push it right into the metal. It'll just embed right into the metal. So now I'm going to do my effort right in here, and we can see it's gauge number 5 right about here. So we'll reference 5, and that's going to tell us alongside you have to use both gauges. 2 goes down the middle here, 2 goes this way. So 2 is showing a little bit of gap underneath it, and when we put 5, there's gap here too. So right in this area here is where we're going to, the flexible shape pattern and the gauges are telling us that information. They are the boss. We got to follow them. So now we're going to bump up the pressure to see if we can add that extra area in here. We'll just work it. Now we want to add area in here, but if we just go like this, we're neglecting this, and what will happen is this will hollow out on us. So you got to go a couple, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 even, and then bring one down. And that will allow you to blend it really nicely into the lower territory. And as you add the area here, it'll start to polish up. That's printing the polish of the wheel onto the panel. I had to sand the wheel with some 600, and it's a little scratch right now. There was something stuck on the wheel. That's a major problem. Always look for foreign material on your wheel. So just a little wiggle action, and you can go right through the wheel real quick here. This is a nice manageable panel too. I was just doing some 18 gauge panels that were way out here and about 4 feet long. And oh man, those things were dreadful. They were just so big. Alright, let's see what we got now. So the actual time on the wheel, I think we're probably approaching like 5 minutes or 7 minutes or something. There's not much actually. So there's that number 5. That's getting closer and closer. Number 2, that's almost right there. So as this goes over more this way, it takes this curve out. So even right now this looks like it's a little overdeveloped, but it isn't. It's because this curve hasn't been put in. If we do overdevelop it, which is always a possibility, all you have to do is wheel the edges a little bit. So as long as you don't go really crazy. So now let's look at this. Now look at that. That had a lot of gap, and now it's really tightened up pretty nicely. And that's pretty tight all over. Now, how do we know it's fully developed? Well, If you overdevelop it, and I'll use this paper just to go under here like this, and you made, say, a big mountain right here, what happens is the edge gets loose. This is a standard compound curve, meaning both radiuses are going in the same direction. There's no reverse present on this compound. So we're really close as far as the area value goes. Now we just got to set that arrangement value just right, and then after we get the arrangement and area value set, then we'll do what I call surface quality, and any little surface blemishes or anything that looks funny, we'll chase after them. And when we get that all done, the panel's going to be looking pretty good. Now the next step would be adding details, and that would be trimming the panel and tipping the edges and everything. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. I think probably be the focus of the next video in the series. So let's see that. Let's put our gauge positions in with the magic marker. We got the magic marker right here, and we'll just mark those all in so we can index these gauges exactly where they need to go. We'll take a straight edge and put these gauges in. All the gauge marks, I put an underscore in, and I put an orientation arrow where the gauge profile goes, and these are the index points for the gauge profiles. Alright, so we're all marked up now, and we'll probably put this top line in. It'll erase a little bit, so put that top line back in. And let's do a little check. Alright, so we still got more there. It's right in this zone here, so we can mark that. It's right about here where we need to bend it most. 4, 5. Alright, so the area value is almost there. And now we got to set the arrangement value a little more closer here. A little more accurate. So we'll take some of the pressure off. We don't need the pressure to do that. And we're going to slowly pull this over. And we'll grab our gauges. We'll start at 9. 9 and 8. 9 and 8. So on the ends it bends real easy. So there's our point that I already marked where I got to pull it over more. So pull that. Loosen the pressure a little more. Now remember, the correction factor here is if I go too far, all I got to do is lift up on it. And that's what I did. So a little bit too much right there. So we got to lift up a little bit now. We might seesaw a little bit. So you go too much one way, then too much the other way. Well, that's pretty close now. That looks good. And number 8. Get number 8 over here. And number 8's looking pretty good too. Pretty close. So now we'll do number 7. I get 7 and 6. 7 and 6. See where we're at here. Looks like we're a little over. So pull that up a little bit. See what 6 looks like. Oh, 6 is a little over too. I went a little too aggressive. It's right here where I'm a little too aggressive, so let me pull this around here. Six. Alright, so I need more right in there. So I pulled out that bad stuff. This one, still more right in here. Now, if you weren't doing it with this, with the profiles, you would be fitting it to a buck. And fitting it to a buck, sometimes you can fit it literally 25, 30 times. So you have to be patient in order to get the results you want. So let's see what number 4 and 5 look like. We're getting really close here. We got a lot of dust. The cardboard's shedding a little dust here. Alright, so 4 needs a bunch more here. So that bends real easy. Let's get 4 going here. Work it out. It's getting nice and close. It's all up in here. The bend needs to happen. Now we might have to bend these on a little fulcrum block if we can't get them here. But it's all a matter of where you push from, so that's the lever point. So if I push down here, it'll tend to bend here, and if I want it to bend here, I've got to push right at that point. Subtle little point, subtle rule you have to follow. Alright, so that one's pretty good. Let's get a stand that I can put these on. I have a nice stand for these. Number 5, I've got a little bit too much here, so I got to take that out in the middle a little bit. Take that out. That's better. And then you see I have to add up in here. I think all of them are going to be calling for that add up in the middle, up in the top half there. So let's see, we need 4. 4 is on the money pretty much right now. 5, 6. Get 6 next. Alright, so that's the main problem right now. We got to make sure that we get enough bend right at that point. So that means we have to push here and pull down at the same time here. Let's see what that did. It's real subtle. Alright, so we're a little bit over on here. That's easy to come out. But we've gained on this. We've only got about 1/8 of an inch or so. So let's do a little more. See what that looks like. Yeah, a little bit more. And we have to take some out of here. We'll take that out after. We'll get this in first. Now there's a little bit of shaping going on, but mostly this is all arrangement. Okay, that's getting real close now. Let's go back to 5. 5 is looking really good. We've got to pull the bottom up a little bit. 4 is really good. Let's look at 7. So 7 needs the same treatment that we did over here. So probably 8 and 7 the same way. So we've got to hold it right here. Whoop. All right, we're almost there. We got to pull the tail up. Now, pull this tail. Alright, so all our north-south gauges are looking pretty good. Now let's take a look at our east-west gauges here. So number 3 is in the middle. No, what do I got? 3's the bottom, okay. 3 goes this way. Okay, so that edge needs a little bit right there. That's a little hollowed out because it didn't get any attention. So we'll fix that. 2 is in the middle, and 2 is saying we need a little bit more area change. And number 1 goes that way, and that is calling for more area up top here. So that's a salient feature of this. That can be put in by wheeling more right at the top here, or when we tip this over we can shrink that edge and that'll kick that edge up. So, but we're really close right now. Let's fix this bottom here. This needs a little 45 action right in here.
What does 45 do?
The 45 is the way I handle a spot that's on the edges it needs a little more attention. Instead of going at a 90 and it'll keep popping out like that, you go at a 45 and it doesn't pop off the wheel. So it's more effective if you put it at a 45-degree angle. You go either way, it doesn't matter. We need to pump that up just a little bit. This edge here is, that one went down, this one up, which is a wave formation. And so that needs a little more attention too, and that'll come down, we'll pull down on this one a little bit, and we'll 45 through it. Alright, now let's put a little area value change up in the top up here, and that will pop that line up nice. go a little bit over here, but most of the action is going to be in the front here. You see, I left a lot of extra material there. That gave me that leverage I needed. We'll wiggle back and forth through here. And that's gauge number 1. And we'll see, quantify everything. So let's see what kind of development we need. The most is right here, and we need about 1/4 of an inch of rise. That's the gap we have right now. And we'll double check to make sure we're not overdeveloped with our flexible shape pattern. No, that's fitting nice. And this area change is actually kind of off the flexible shape pattern's scope here, so we're using the gauge as a guide. So we're going to put a little more right on that top edge to get a curve going on that top edge. Give it a little more pressure. Give it a little more. We'll see what that did. That reaction has some effect, so that'll change other things too, so you have to double back and check everything. So we were 1/4 of an inch, now we're 1/8 of an inch. The widest point is right here, so it's still going to need a little more area right in here. So that's where our focus will be. Let's check that. Everything is quantifiable, so that's where the gauges really come in. They're super important. Oh, look at that. Just about right there now. That's pretty good. Alright, now let's check 2. Alright, 2. We got that oriented right? Yeah. 2 dropped down because we put all this attention up here. 2 is going to need a little more attention now. We stole from 2 and gave it to 1. The same thing here. So this kind of hollowed out when we put that extra hump up here. Let's check the flexible shape pattern. And you see we've got wheeling marks here. That's what I call surface quality. We're going to deal with those later. What we're doing now is just getting the area and arrangement value in the ballpark. Now the flexible shape pattern is still touching. That's all good. Now see, we're a little loose now right here because we puffed this up. So now we have to puff this up here a little bit. It'll be a lot less pressure, but that'll bring that up pretty fast, just like this top edge. This top edge is kind of locked now. So we'll loosen the pressure up. Boop. So if you were doing this with a buck, this would be innumerable fittings to the buck. And the buck, if it's a wood buck and it's not designed right and you can't really see where it's fitting, it's just a really torturous path in order to get a perfect result. Even with a wire form in this case here, it would be difficult to determine exactly what you need to do. I know students from their perspective watching them is that they'll go, well, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? Well, that question is answered if you've got good directions. The directions come from the information you have to generate. And once you have the information, which is the flexible shape pattern in this case, you have to follow it to the letter of the law, otherwise the panel will not fit. So I'm pretty sure we got too much roundness going on here. When we put these gauges, they'll be off a mile. But we'll take that out in a minute. Let's see. Alright, so that's showing still a hollow there, but that'll come out when we set the arrangement. That's a lot better. So let's put gauge 6 on and see what 6 says. Yeah, alright, so 6 is showing a lot extra bend right here, so that's where we got to take that bend out. Well, we're really strong on the bend right here, and that was a result of popping this area up here. So we'll loosen the pressure up, and we'll take a bunch of that bend out. So this is a process. Number 7, and that's looking better. So I maybe took a little too much. So that's called seesawing, going back and forth, back and forth. So let me get 6 and see what 6 says. So 6 goes right here. That's a lot better. So I got to add a little bit now to get those right. So I'm going to pull down on it a little bit right in here. Now watch those gauges. So 6 is almost there. It still needs a little bend at the top. And you have to bend it where 6 is, but you also have to bend it in 6's, left and right neighborhood also to get it flowing just right. So, yeah, that's looking pretty sweet now. Now we'll try 7. 7 needs the same thing. I gotta bend that right there. Alright, there's 7. 7's looking good. 8. 8's pretty close. Gotta take some of 8 out here. Lift up on it here. And then add in here. Okay. And then 4. 4 is that front one. That's really good. 9 is the other end. 9 looks pretty good. I think we're really close now. I mean, it needs a little fine tuning, plus the surface quality, just for a sense of accomplishment. Let's go put it on that scout fender over there and see how it marries up to that fender. Well, here we are on the original fender, and you can see that's laying down pretty nicely. It's got a margin all around it of more of an inch, but I think that'll work pretty sweet. So that's all we're going to do tonight on that. The next installment will be the surface quality, the final setting of the arrangement, and then we'll start tipping the edges, and then we'll have an actual usable patch panel which will fit perfectly, and we'll mark this out, cut it, fit it in, weld it. So I hope you learned something. It's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts. Please subscribe, give us some likes, give us some comments, and tell your friends. Remember, metal is clay. Thank you.